Here is why triggers are actually a really good thing, and it's important to acknowledge them and pay attention because they will help you grow. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Vanessa. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is such a good one that is so often overlooked, because when we get triggered, we get so identified with our emotions that we do not see the blessing in receiving that trigger. I'm going to share a little bit from my personal journey because that may help you to understand what I mean. I used to, whenever I got triggered in the past, I used to get so emotional and so into defense mode where I would feel like, my mind would just try to find a defense, like this is not how it is, or yes, but this person also wasn't perfect or said something, or, my mind would just try to defend me in every way possible. And usually when the mind does that, we are trying to find a solution by taking responsibility of us and finding responsibility in the outside world, like, yeah, but you, like you, or, either we try and defend or we see ourselves as guilty. Depends on, our inner workings. So sometimes we want to defend and blame the other person. And again, no judgment. I'm saying this from a place of, I've been there. I know how it feels. And in that moment, you actually think you get so angry or you get so sad or upset in any way. And you're just like, wanting to find a reason or wanting to find an explanation for something. And maybe things may not feel fair, and like your brain comes up with all these reasons and all these things why something is wrong and not fair, and somebody else is guilty and whatever. So as we are often in that moment so emotional and identified with our emotions, because rarely we have learned to regulate our state and step back from our emotions and actually see, oh, that emotion is coming up, right? I mean, who sees it like that? Not many people. It takes a lot of inner work to get, and again, no judgment, guys, ladies, gentlemen. It's totally normal because we don't learn that in school. To feel an emotion come up, feel the intensity of, oh, I'm getting angry, or I'm getting sad, or I'm going to start crying, and feeling it inside without having to get to a state that is out of control, like screaming or physically defending or pointing fingers, like using aggressive language, swear words, whatever, running away, that are all very automated responses. Let's call it actually reactions, because the difference between a response and the reaction is a reaction is automated and we don't have to control over changing it. It just happens from our body, from our nervous system, before we can logically think about what we want to do. A response, on the other hand, is maybe not well thought through, but you have some control over, yeah? So you may have a second where you think, or you take a moment where you're not at the mercy of your emotions. A reaction is your emotion, bam, yeah? A response is your emotion comes up and you're like, oh, I'm so angry right now. Maybe I'm not going to say that word. Maybe I take a breath and then I decide to respond, yeah? This is at least my interpretation of it. And when we react, we are not in a neutral space, right? Like we react from our wounds in the past, and often we are not even aware that we react from our wounds. Often we think all that upset, all that sadness, all that anger, all that disappointment, whatever is the emotion, fear, happens from the situation at hand. But then ask yourself, when you put the situation in perspective, could you really bring so much emotionality, that volume of intensity, not always, right? But just go with this example, from this moment? Could you bring really so much intensity up from this moment? Often it's a no. Often it's a small moment where somebody asks us the wrong question, where somebody opens a door, takes our parking spot, where somebody doubts us or whatever. And if we were regulated, we would probably not care or laugh about it or whatever. But when we are in, like when somebody taps on our wound, puts a finger inside without even knowing that they're doing it oftentimes, because often, in most cases, not always, but in most cases, people don't hurt you intentionally. But your automated response, your automated reaction comes up, and you're suddenly in that part of you that got hurt in the past. Now, if it doesn't make sense to you what I'm saying with in that part of you, let me explain. But if you still have questions, please comment below and ask a question. When I'm saying you're in that part of you, it's suddenly like you identified with that part of you that years ago or months ago or weeks ago or in childhood, in adolescence got hurt. And often we don't know that we're actually falling into that part, into the energy of that part, and respond from there. That's why days after we sometimes still feel so angry and triggered when somebody brings the topic up again. Because it's like a knot that hasn't been released. So then what I recommend you, what I started doing at some point was, after I had a reaction, sometimes you don't react outwards, but internally, and you eat it up, and it, really does something to you internally, rather than, you even sharing or open up about it, then it eats you up internally. And I had these moments in my life, and at some point, I cannot pinpoint anymore when that started, but at some point I started realizing, why am I actually so angry about this thing? Why am I so angry? And then I would do a meditation, for example. So you can try the free meditation that is linked below. It's perfect to go through a trigger situation to understand what is actually lying below. So I would do a meditation with myself and just follow that pain, follow that sadness, anger, disgust, whatever it is, fear. And I would have a memory come up of something that was below that, because then I let myself feel that fear or that emotion. And after I felt it, I actually realized, I just wanted to be heard. I didn't feel heard. That's why this wound was triggered again of, I'm not heard. And the wound is often so much bigger than the situation at hand. But if we feel not heard, just as an example, over many times in our life, without releasing that pain about it, without speaking up and saying, you know what, I actually have a wound of like not feeling heard, or actually, I feel not heard by you right now. So if we speak that out, then the other person can say, instead of our mental narrative that may tell you, they don't care about me, I'm not heard, they don't actually see me, they don't care about my well-being, they're just absorbed with themselves. But if you speak out, hey, can we talk for a moment? I have the feeling like you don't hear me. This and this that I said was really important to me, and I just felt like you didn't take me seriously. Is that true? And then they may say, oh God, no, I'm sorry, I was actually so busy. I'm sorry I didn't take the time to listen to you. Now that you're telling me that this is important to you, I can listen. Not everybody will be so open-hearted and open-minded listening. Let me just say that. But I would say the goal is to be surrounded by people that are willing to hear you and willing to have that conversation with you, right? Because you deserve it. And if you're currently not having people that have this capacity to listen and meet your needs, that's okay too. It sucks a little, I know. But when I realized that, especially with my mom, I couldn't speak like this, I stopped blaming her and stopped, feeling not seen, because I knew that she probably doesn't even see herself in that way, or she hasn't learned the tools of how to, give somebody emotional space or listen. She probably didn't learn that from her parents either. And so I knew that I was looking for meeting for her meeting me, but I was looking in the wrong place. Yeah. And not everybody in our life will be able to give that to us. They are able, maybe they're giving us love and support in ways that feels like a lot and feels very loving to them. My mom would do that with buying clothing and food. Yeah. But she would not understand the emotional intelligence or the emotional need for connection, and for listening. And that's okay. For the longest time, I would resent her for it. But then at some point, I realized, it's like we're not on the same frequency on that. So it's like she cannot hear me, actually. She cannot understand that need because maybe she has that need, but she doesn't acknowledge it herself. And if you don't know something about yourself, it's hard to understand. And so I started seeing her for, okay, what are the ways that she shows me love in? And, we cannot force others to love us in the way that we need to. Sometimes we try that, especially in romantic relationships. We want to change our partner. We want them to love us a certain way. And if you can open up and communicate with them and they're open to receive you and you are open also, it's a two-way street, to receive them and to listen and to make an effort, both of you, then that's amazing. But if that is not an option, then this doesn't speak for you not being enough or them not being enough. It just speaks for you not being on the same wavelength, and which means you're maybe not compatible. Yeah. But I, for the longest time, tried to make people understand me. I tried so desperately, like, to have others understand me or to change others or like have the hope in their potential. And if you see somebody's potential, that's great. But if they're not showing up as somebody who is willing to grow and evolve, maybe that's not a value for them. Maybe it's a value for you. And then it's sometimes, we need to ask ourselves, am I looking for what I need in the wrong places? Yeah, and that's hard. That can hurt. That can cause us grief. But then let yourself feel that and show up for yourself and maybe change direction. Yeah. Or let them love you in different ways, depending on what kind of relationship and expectation you have for them. When I dropped the expectation on my mom to give me what I need, we suddenly started having a much better relationship because I wasn't constantly, subconsciously trying to explain her who I am or to make her understand me or to change her to fit me more, So this is like live and let live a little bit, this idea. And sometimes we can keep the relationships up and just appreciate each other for the good stuff and seeing each other for who you really are and respect each other for that. And sometimes that may be harder. Sometimes every time you meet each other, that may trigger you. And I'm not speaking about your mom specifically. I'm speaking about anybody in your life. And, I also had a good friend that I would trigger constantly. And they would behaved to me in really ways that were disrespectful, but I didn't notice it for a long time because I had this pattern with a family member. So for me, that was just like, oh, I did something wrong again. Oh, I did something wrong again. Until I realized, no, we just have different values, and that person doesn't accept me the way I am. They want me to change. But I cannot change who I am. We had this topic yesterday. I can change like bad habits, and I can change misbehavior and the things that I'm not. But I cannot change if I, piss somebody off, sorry for my French, the way that I am by being myself, I cannot change myself, I cannot change who I am when I trigger somebody just by being myself. Yeah, that doesn't mean I'm bad. That doesn't mean the other person is bad. But at some point, I just had to say, look, this doesn't feel respectful to me. When I released that pattern with my family member, I can say it with my mom, then I suddenly also realized that the relationship with that friend was not healthy, and that I had to let go of it because I didn't feel respected, and I felt constantly like I was walking on eggshells. Yeah, so sometimes triggers make us feel like we need to walk on eggshells when we trigger somebody else, and we need to make ourselves smaller. And sometimes we feel like when others trigger us, like, what are they doing? We're searching for the mistake in them. And there may also be other ways that this comes up, but these are just the ways that are coming to me right now. And so your triggers are actually always telling you something. Either they remind you of a pattern or relationship that you had in childhood or growing up. Yeah, maybe it's the same sort of blueprint, and the relationship at hand now is a mirror for that. Or the relationship that you at hand now is the original relationship, and you're still struggling through that. And then ask yourself, like, what does the trigger tell me? Because your trigger is basically an emotional messenger. Emotion, energy in motion. And the trigger is like turning on a light switch, right? Turning on that light switch means like, oh, information. So all you got to, and sometimes it's hard to understand the message of the trigger when you're so identified with the emotions on the surface. Yeah, so what I recommend you, no matter what emotions are coming up when you feel triggered, try first of all to acknowledge that you are triggered right now. Not right now, but in that situation. Yeah, take a deep breath, and instead of instead of reacting, you take a deep breath and you notice, ooh, I feel the anger, I feel the vibrations in my chest. Oh my God, this is a lot of emotion. I want to scream right now, but you know what? I just breathe and tell that person, you know what? I need 5 minutes to myself, and then you can go out and scream outside, for example. Just an example. Or in your car. That's great, by the way. In your car, putting on music really loud and singing out your feelings, that's great. I do that all the time. When I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm disappointed, everything. Because the goal is not to suppress your emotions, and the goal is not to not have a trigger, and the goal is not to not feel. The goal is to feel that the emotion is coming up, and then not being at the mercy of the emotion coming up, meaning not having the automated reaction, but feeling it come up. Let's say somebody triggered me, or I felt triggered by somebody doing something. It's a difference. And I feel sadness come up. And I'm like, oh, and with that sadness comes the narrative. See, Vanessa, you're not good enough. I told you. They don't listen to you. Just an example, yeah, random. And then I'm like, instead of going into that negative spiral, because a trigger can also create a negative thought spiral, right? I actually feel, and I realize that I'm triggered, and connect always, I'm triggered, a wound is being triggered. So like a limiting belief is being triggered right now. Connect that. Just make this a blueprint in your mind that I'm triggered, let's get curious. I'm triggered, there's something I don't know about myself. Yeah, I'm triggered, there's a wound I get to explore. And often it's much deeper than the situation at hand. So, typical example, your partner didn't do the dishes. And, for a week, and you told them, babe, you need to do the dishes. And they're still like not hearing you. They still didn't do it. And you're like, I'm always doing it. What happens? You're getting angry, you're getting upset, you feel like you're not loved. But what is the actual problem? You're not feeling heard. And the not feeling heard didn't just happen in that situation, if you're being honest. The not feeling heard is older. The not feeling heard and appreciated is much older. So where does it come from? Do you understand the little practice that I'm telling you here? When you get triggered, just to put it one more time together, when you get triggered, get curious about the origin of the trigger and not immediately blame, not immediately shame, not immediately, do that either to others or to yourself. Not immediately believing the negative narrative that starts spiraling in your mind. I had one very strong one for a long time, and I still have it sometimes. I was like a bigger kid. I put a lot of weight on when I was like 7 when my parents split. And I always felt so seen and loved by all my classmates and actually, that's not true. Wait, I actually felt really seen and loved by all like the teachers and all the playing groups and teachers in my creative classes and so on. But sometimes I was wearing really crazy outfits sometimes because my parents were just like a little wild, I think. And so I would sometimes have very strange shoes or like a grass green bomber jacket as a child. And people were just like, other children were like making fun of that. So that was already like, standing out. That's scary, But then with like 7, I put on a lot of weight because I did a lot of emotional eating. And suddenly this feeling of, I'm mostly safe and I'm mostly loved turned very quickly to I'm bullied. I'm bullied for being me because I didn't really understood what being bigger meant. I didn't really see that in me. I don't know. It was very weird because I just felt like I was bullied for being myself and just for trying to emotionally regulate, I guess. Like I felt like misunderstood because the children or the people couldn't see what was emotionally going on within me. So I often felt misunderstood. And then I lost it again later and so on. But the thing is here, like sometimes, if I would be in a phase where I didn't do much workouts and so on, I would go around, like especially in summer when I was wearing shorts or whatever, I would sometimes, when I feel like mentally in a phase where I didn't do sports and so on, and maybe ate crappy food or so, I would start feeling like I need to hide. And whenever I went somewhere with like, a bunch of friends or people by the lake or something, I would think like, I would get triggered in that part of me, in that young, in that younger part that felt like she wasn't loved, no matter what weight or no matter what she was looking like. So I would start like hiding or not undressing at the lake and so on. So I would have this like power over me almost that, in form of a trigger of like, oh my God, if I just walk around in a bikini now, then I lose control, or then I, will be shamed. And the trigger was, sadness. And I would sit there and nobody even said anything, nobody even cared. But in my mind, I would feel so triggered and so afraid to go into take off my shorts and go into the water or something. So triggers can come in any kind. Or when I first started like giving breathwork sessions, I would feel like, oh God, if people liked it, I don't know, what if they think I'm crazy, because it's such a thing that's a little bit out there. And I would be, afterwards having this negative spiral. So that is a trigger too, where you feel like, were you looking for validation from others? And if people didn't say anything afterwards, after the session, I would sometimes feel like, not anymore, but back then in the very beginning, like, oh my God, people hated it, whatever. And then the next day I would get like such beautiful emails with thank you notes and so on, sharing about the experiences. And then I would realize, oh God, Vanessa, you're insane. You're so in your head, and I'm sure you have your own examples on that. So when that happens, it's your job to realize I'm not my mind and I'm not my emotions. This is happening right now. So let me be the observer of my emotions and of my mental narratives, of my spirals, and say, wait, you can literally, no matter where you are, in a supermarket, on a concert, on a date, go to the bathroom, or just stand there for yourself for a moment, take a deep breath and just say, wait, what you're telling me is not the truth. I know that for a fact. And even if you don't have the time to figure this out and in that moment, take a deep breath and just say, you know what, I know this is not true. I know you want to keep me safe. But today or tonight at home, we're gonna chat about this. We're gonna deal with that, yeah? Hello, sweet people, I'm back. Sorry, I had some stuff come up in that moment and I had to leave the house and take care of something. What I was saying is basically, the first thing you have to do when you get triggered is understand I'm triggered. So let me take responsibility. Let's not go immediately into blaming. So that would be, inflating yourself, your ego in that sense. And let's also not go into deflating, which would be making yourself smaller, taking all the blame, people pleasing. Okay? Both of these are sort of not our natural self. But if we have not learned how to regulate our emotions and how to, let's say, welcome, like a mature parent would, welcome that tantrum that is going on within you, that dispute, that dissonance. Imagine yourself like a parent, parenting these parts within you that get a tantrum, yeah? And just imagine yourself like in that inner conflict. And before even having to automatically react and defend or people please. Guys, you will not believe this, but I have deleted so much content from my phone today in order to film properly. And it doesn't want to let me take videos. So I'm really sorry for the bad quality. I promise to improve. I just don't have my camera at the moment. But we're getting there. But it's more important about content, right? So please, please, please forgive me. It's gonna get better in the next videos. So final words for this video, so we wrap it up. You are a human being. We are all human beings. So it comes naturally that, like we need to practice these things. And we need to practice listening and understanding when emotions are coming up. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. There's always the chance that if you overreact and you are in a trigger, that you can say sorry. That's human. It's human to be vulnerable. It's human to say, listen, I overreacted, or even taking your time a little bit to think it through what happened and then have a conversation with the person. And again, see if you can open your heart in that situation, first to yourself, but then also in exchange with others. Sometimes I go on the street and people have a shitty reaction out of nowhere to me, and I just don't take it personally because I know they have stuff going on and I don't need to judge them. It's okay. It's not my thing. But then I had moments in my life when I had that too. But then often, when I was already learning about triggers, I could snap myself out of it and be like, ooh, hey, I'm sorry for right now. This was not okay. But I also had moments before when I did not say that. And again, we're all humans, we're all growing. So please do not pressure yourself to be perfect. Say sorry when it's appropriate, say thank you when it's appropriate. Don't say anything if you don't need to, like take your time to grow and just be a kind, decent human being along the way. Like we all have triggers, we all know how it feels sometimes. And yeah, so because I sometimes have people in the comments feeling super pressure of like, I cannot make it happen. My emotions are coming up and I cannot regulate them. Breathe, my friend, breathe, okay? Pressuring is never going to help you. Take it easy. Just observe. Sometimes, again, coming always back to the journaling work, sometimes even it's already enough when you observed afterwards, when you were triggered and maybe had a reaction, oh, this happened. I was triggered actually. Ooh, I had a reaction. Write yourself down. How do you react when you get triggered? Yeah. You fight, flight, fawn, freeze. Fawn is like people pleasing. Freeze is like not moving or not reacting at all, being sort of numbed. Fight is like defensiveness with words or whatever. And flight is just disappearing or ghosting or leaving the room or whatever. Okay. So find out what type of reactor basically you are when you're getting triggered. I mean, remember a situation. What did you do? Did you spiral with thoughts? Did you internalize it or did you express it? Did you feel like ashamed and you are guilty of everything? Or did you want to point fingers and make the other person guilty? Yeah, it's all okay. Just think about it. Just understand your own patterns. That's the first step. And then you can prepare in your mind and rehearse. Oh, next time a trigger comes up, how do I want to respond instead? Do I want to ask the person for, whoa, I need 5 minutes right now to collect myself. I'm going to go outside. Or what is the thing that would help you in that situation? Or do you want to tell somebody, whoa, I'm getting really sad right now. Can you give me a moment? Or, hey, this really hurts right now. I'm getting quite angry. Like find out what would help you. How would your mature parent self, your mature parent self that is also living within you, respond? That's really powerful. Let's go down that road and write it, share it with us in the comments below so people can get inspired. Okay. Rehearsing is everything, even though, you crack and you have like a triggered reaction or whatever. Afterwards, you can realize, oh, I got really triggered today. I was really in my feelings. I really blamed that person. Aha, but actually the wound that was triggered is this and that. And it may take some time to build that consciousness around it. So please don't judge yourself. Keep it coming, keep practicing. That's all that's important. Okay? Remember, you're a human being, so are all of us. Comment below, what's your trigger? How do you react? How would you want to respond instead? Inspire some people. Come on, we can practice together. Practice right now and you're already getting started. All right, my loves. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up, share it with somebody who needs to hear this, and I see you in another video. Thank you so thank you so much for tuning in, okay? Bye. Oh, subscribe if you haven't.